All right, should we get started? Well, thank you everyone for coming. Today I wanted to talk about getting started on the right foot, really steps that either you as a DevTop or your clients can take to make sure that you make the best website possible. Just so I know who is here today, who would consider themselves like a client. Your organization is maybe building a website, whether it's in Drupal or whatnot. Okay, and then who works as a dev shop or individual developer? All right, and how many people here do project management stuff? A couple people. How many people really like it? Or I should say, how many people don't like it? Well, that's what I do all the time. As I said, thanks for coming. I work at Gorton Studios. We are a boutique Drupal development shop. We've been around since 2001. We started building Drupal websites since 2004, so we've been doing it for quite a while. I joined the team in 2014, so I've been managing all our projects since then. I also, before that time, worked at a local PBS affiliate managing different documentaries and series and the company website. So I've been managing the good, the bad, the ugly of projects for a long time, and I actually really like it because I think it's really fun to work with people and work through different challenges. Other things that I do are be a mom. My two great kids, my daughter Isabel just turned 4 a couple weeks ago, but she had a birthday in Boston and then had a party a week later, so she thinks she's 5. So it's an interesting challenge. So we're going to celebrate 6 next year. I also shoot sports on the side because, you know, that's a normal thing to do. So if anyone is in town, go to sporting events and want to be on Kiss Cam, I can put you on Kiss Cam, so I can do it. So I mostly do a lot of hockey events. So if anyone likes hockey, come find me and we'll make it happen. So why should we even care about things like this? Well, most important thing we want to do right is build the best web experience, whether we're building an app, an application, a website. But people that I work with care about how much does it cost, right? You don't want to keep running over budget on everything. They also want a website yesterday. So time is super, super important. And then the one that really matters to me is sanity, right? So good websites come from good people that are happy. If people aren't happy and there's a lot of tension and struggles and you're worrying about the timeline and budget and bickering and arguing, then you're really not focusing on what makes the best website. So if we can eliminate these problems and focus on that, keep people happy, we're going to do some good stuff. So I'm going to talk about a couple of things that I think your clients can be doing or you can be working with them to kind of get started before you start planning out your architecture, wireframes, and building your website. And I think one of the best places to have people start is defining what you actually need. It's obviously why people want a website, right? They're ugly, it's out of date, but try to figure out more specifically what those needs are. And so there's some kind of 5 key questions that I like our clients to either think about before they come to us or we work through them in our process. One is, why are you actually building a website? Get out a piece of paper and write down the 3 to 5 things about why you're building this website. Maybe you need a mobile presence and because your users are skyrocketing for that. Maybe you've decided to rebrand your company, the look, what you're communicating, and the website doesn't reflect that at all. Maybe you shifted presidents and he wants a new website. Whatever the reasons are, get to the specifics of them. Not just the broad, big picture ideas, but even like, you have a new CRM, you want to create the interaction, or you have a plethora of articles and video, and you want a way people to search it out. Figure out as a group what are the 3 to 5 most important things you should be doing so that you can use these as kind of your pillars of how these objectives need to be achieved by the time you get to the end of the project. Figure out what makes you actually unique. What makes you the only person to be what? This is actually something that drives our clients nuts, and they say it with a smile on their face, but it's really hard to write in one sentence what you are and why you're special. But making sure that you know that so that your dev shop can actually make sure that comes through in what they're doing and also is communicating on the website is really important. How are you going to stand out? What makes you special? We even have clients that they call me and they're really stressed out. They're like, I don't know, I have 3 different options. We just worded them differently. Is that okay? I'm like, that's great. The point is you're having that conversation. Who are you rebuilding this website for, right? Who are your audiences? Are they your staff? Are they doctors? Are they teachers? Are they the public? Are they the media? Who are they? Figure out who that list is. Mark the priority of them so that you know who is the most important you should be speaking to, but don't forget about the people at the bottom. Also, with your staff, take that and break that down. Staff is a big category, and you really need to be making sure that you're taking care of the needs of your internal audience too. So it might be anywhere from like the marketing department just wants to use it as a showpiece versus the people that are actually creating and entering the content and doing the kind of tangible work. Figure out what features do they need and what they really want, right? So what are they coming to your website for right now? Figure out that for each single audience. Figure out also what is the problem with how they're coming to your website now. What can't they do? What is the struggle? And then what would really make them happy? So it might be something very simple like, wow, better navigation. This is impossible. I can't find any of the pages I need to do my job. Or it's something really awesome, like this crazy interface where you log in and you got this dashboard and you can save these things over here and that. Just think outside the box, but figure out what those features are. And this can be something you can use if you have to go through an RFP process. So this will be something you can start talking to people about. And then finally, is your budget realistic, right? So we get the opportunity to talk to a lot of people that call us, or we meet different places that ask us questions about, are they on the right track? What are they doing? I actually encourage that. If you're looking to kind of figure out what your range is and what you're doing, call people. People are really nice in the Drupal community. We gladly, even if we're not going to work with someone, like to hear what people are doing, give some opinions, and then it's really nice to be able to say a range. Like, so, I'm doing this, these are my projects, what do you think that maybe cost? And get a sense of it. You might have budgeted way too much money, and oh my God, save some of that for phase 2, 3, 4, and you need this. Or maybe you're really under budget, and you're not quite sure what these 20 things everybody wants in their features is really gonna cost. The nice thing about that conversation too is you can call some people you might admire their work and think that might be a good contractor for you, and start building a relationship. You'll find out really quickly if maybe they're a match and someone you can contact further along if you have to send out an RFP. The nice thing about this process internally for our client is that it's going to help build their team up, right? So this is the first time they can all sit down and try to work together and work through conflict, because no doubt there'll be a lot of people that have different opinions. So this is the time to come through and figure out one single direction. You also get the chance to allow for some team leaders to emerge, who's going to kind of step up and speak and kind of bring the group together. So it's a good exercise for that as well. So once you have these needs kind of figured out, it's great to figure out who should be on your team, right? Who is the best team for you, right? And you should get the best team. That is really important. And the best team might not be the person that's super technologically savvy. Like it might not be the hot, sexy people or person that is doing this website or that, because you might not need that. Karen talked a lot about figuring out what your needs and making sure that's a match. And I completely agree. Like finding the right people match is just as important as finding someone that is technically savvy. So from the client team, I look for these kind of aspects in a good team. How big is your team? How many people? So I tell people when they ask me this, 4 to 6 people on a team. And I get a lot of chuckles from some bigger clients we work with. The problem is when you get too small, you're going to start including some stakeholders that have opinions in the conversation. So you're going to go on your way. We had a client a year or two back, wonderful people. We were building their website. There was 3 people, and then the person kind of drifted off. And so there's 2 of us, and we went, we're planning it. We did the site map, and then we're wireframes, and then, oh, that person that had all these opinions that really matter and have authority, they need to change some things. We're going to go 2 steps back. And it was fine, and we got there. But if that person was in that conversation, it would have been smoother, less time, a little less stressful. If you get too big, then you're going to have the other issue, right? Everyone is going to have opinions, right? And we worked a couple years back also with a client that had 15, 20 people in the room. We at first, had to make sure everyone was there because these were good people and they had opinions and it was worth something. But we had to stretch out these meetings, right? So we could only meet every month, 2 months. And so the project kept stretching out. People started forgetting about what we're doing. We lost momentum. So then we just started swishing it together, and then people started missing meetings. Well, then we get to a meeting and they say, oh, well, what about this, this, this? And it's like, I'm so sorry. We actually decided those things last week. This is what we chose. Let's move on. But that's not really fair to those people either. So you really want to pick the right size of team. Do people have time? So we work with a lot of nonprofits, and in situations like that, and probably in anybody's job, right? Everybody has 40 plus hours a week filled up in their schedule. Nobody has time to build a website. This is on top of their job already. So I try to make sure that people I work with understand what that means. So you're going to have to meet with us to talk about deliverables. You're going to meet individually as a team, maybe weekly or twice a week, to talk about where the project is, who needs to be doing what's the status of things. You're going to need to be reviewing deliverables on your own. You might be on the content team. You might need to create content. You might be to enter content. You might be the project manager and have to gather everyone. And then you might have to talk to people in your division, department, blah, 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 blah. So it kind of stresses people out. But I think when people know what they're getting into and how much time, it helps them kind of prioritize and figure out what they can do or not do. Now, if somebody doesn't have the time to do this and they're an important key stakeholder, I say leave them out. You either commit or you don't commit. If that person can't make it and they're important to make decisions, you find different ways to incorporate them, and you set up those guidelines at the start of the project. So say you have some director, vice president or something that has opinions and thoughts about something. You sit down at the start of the project, you talk about what they're willing to commit to, you talk about what decisions they'll get to make when, and what they can change. So maybe you're going to sit in a meeting and talk through your architecture, go through that process, make choices, and then the revised architecture, you sit down with them and then say, these are the choices we made, here's where we got so far, what are your thoughts on this? This is the constraints of your feedback, remember we talked about it later. And that tends to go a lot better when people know how that can impact the group and what the rules have been set up in the beginning. Can they focus on the big picture? That's really important. We do not want to be building a website by committee, because that never goes really well. So we want people in the room that are specialists. That's going to happen. Someone's in charge of publications, or someone's in charge of the science area or something, and those people are super valuable. At the same time that they provide their input, they've got to be willing to let go and look at that big vision, right? We talked about that earlier, about having that big vision of what this website's going to be, who it's going to speak to, and the pillars. They need to be able to support that. If they can't, it's going to be a problem in the group. Who is the right leader? So I often, when I work with people are already assigned as the project manager, and that's just fine. That doesn't mean you can't have other leaders if they're not the person that has the authority that the organization has given to them. Make sure you pick people that can make decisions, because there's going to be a lot of them, and can move the group, right? Like make the decision, and after all the conversation, okay, this is the direction we're heading in. Everyone supports that. So what do you want to look for in a dev team? Who have they worked with, right? So what are the clients they have been working with? Are they working for profits? Are they working with nonprofits? Does it matter to you? Do they work with government, not government? Do they have a variety in their work? Or they work with the same type of people? Maybe you're building a school website and you want someone that does school websites. That's their thing. They do it day in, day out. Or you don't, because what you don't want is the same school website. It's kind of up to you. Also, what size organization are they? Are they similar to your size? Does it seem like a good fit in that aspect? What size budgets have they been working on? So if their range is $50,000 to $100,000 and your project is coming in there, that's a good, comfortable fit. If your project is $20,000, that dev shop is going to have to stretch really hard to get down there, and you're probably going to end up over budget. Not necessarily, but it's going to be tough for them. At the same token, if your budget is $100,000 and someone's only worked on $40,000 projects, to be able to have the staffing and the structure to do that kind of project, that's a huge jump for them. So it doesn't mean it won't work, but you should sit down and figure out how that would work and if they're comfortable with what that actually means. What's their technology street cred? So we're all here at Drupal Camp, so we're probably interested in Drupal. So good ways to find out what they've done is how long has somebody worked with Drupal? For the tech people on the staff, what they've been doing on Drupal.org, have they contributed modules? Is that important to you? How long have they been building? And then what are the reputation in the community, right? Ask other shops and look around and do some searches and see what people are saying in the community about that group. What is their track record? So this is the great time to call their references, and they're going to give you some references, and then you're going to go and look at their website and call other references, because it's best to check ones they don't give you, because why not? It's more people and more voices, and if they have happy clients all the way around, then it's probably a really good sign. So talk to them with the references about what is the relationship now. Are they still working with them? Are they not? Is there a reason they're not? How do they deal with timeline and budget overages? If you call enough people, you're going to find someone that went over scope, over budget, over timeline. That's going to happen. Everyone builds websites. These things happen. It's how they deal with it. What is the communication? Were they alerted to it soon enough? Or is this a huge surprise? How was it handled, the overage? Who covered the cost? Also, is there any hidden costs? Are they talking to you about security updates at the end? Have you guys been talking about hosting? Did you go through and then all of a sudden, oh, surprise, this phase is something else, and we didn't talk about that? And finally, are they available? This is the one, we get a lot of questions about this, and it's like, so you're gonna answer the phone? I'm like, I hope so, like, yeah. A lot of people have work with people that don't answer their phone or email, or it takes weeks or months and they can't get things changed, and that's really frustrating. But you should ask that question, because apparently that's an issue out there. Also, who are they really? So this is one of the most important things to me when I meet people. I want to be as good a match for someone as they want to be with me. I want to like them. I want to be similar to them, have values, because you know what? They have to hang out with me for 3 to 12 months. And that's either really good or really bad. But I want to like someone. So, you know, if you're going to spend all this money building a website and time and commitment and energy in your organization, go grab lunch with them, because an hour, 2 hours of your time is nothing. Meet with them. See if you guys want to work together. See what it's like. And it goes a long way. So, now that you've got your team and your goals and your audiences and you're ready to go, I would also say don't. I would not sign a contract and get moving until you've talked about sizable project impactors, those big things. And the big things aren't necessarily big for everybody, right? So we often do newsletter integration, right? Which could be anything from an email sign-in box and goes to MailChimp, no big deal. And then we just implemented newsletters for 4 different newsletters that have, some are automated, some are not. They have different themes and logos, and then some go on the first of the month and do this, and they have this rule, blah. So that's a big item. Those are the things you should talk about. And you don't need to spec them out at this point, because you should make sure your whole team's having that conversation, but you should know enough to make sure both people on both sides are comfortable signing that contract. Like, I know that's about this big, I know how much money it is. Okay, great. And this is too really important if you're working on a fixed bid, because at the end of the day, you're going to have to hit that mark. So if you don't know what newsletter means, then you're going to have a problem hitting that. So what are some of these things? Newsletters, e-commerce, online donations, event registration, mapping, content, social media, mobile, login capabilities, workflow, permissions, third-party integrations, and my favorite, the guy in IT 10 years ago wrote this really cool thing, and he left the company 3 years ago, but Sandra still uses it, so will you build that for me? I don't know what it is. We can't log in, nobody knows. Can you just tell me how much that costs? So that's my favorite one, but don't panic. It's not really that big of a deal. You just need to work through and discuss them. So what I usually do with people is get a list of the current features. So I often kind of go through the website and figure out what I think they are anyway, or could I log in if they have a Drupal site, and make a list of what all the features are, what I think are things we need to talk about. And it's also helpful to get URLs that a client has, so I know what they're saying. So if they're saying, I have a calendar, great. Where is that? I can't find it. You have a whole bunch of hidden stuff. Okay, it's over here. This is what it does now. How is this going to change? How do you want it to change? That's important information too. Also, what are the future features you might want to have? So this isn't going to set as a detailed contract set in stone, but let's talk about this. What do you think you're going to add? You're going to add event registration? Okay, what does that mean? And have you been looking? Everybody's been looking, right? Everyone comes to us and says, I saw the coolest thing, it's over here. Great. Doesn't mean we're going to build that. Maybe we're going to build exactly that. But it's good to know. It's really good to see an example to get out of people's head what they're talking about. And then the most important thing is ask why. Why do you want these features? Are they fulfilling those business needs? Are they meeting your prioritized audiences? Are they important? And it doesn't mean if the answer is like, we really like it, we think people might want it, I don't know. It doesn't mean it has to go off the list. But it's good to start prioritizing, because what's going to happen is you're probably going to have only so much money to do all these things. So it's good to know what you got on the top and what you don't have on the top. So all that being said, there's three kind of main things that people have been asking me about lately, or been coming up in RFPs, and they're like, well, what do we do about this? We want to have this. We need mobile. What does that mean? So I wanted to just talk through a couple different things. Mobile, content strategy, and also social media strategy. So a couple of things that a client can either be asking themselves or you can be talking with them about are the following things for mobile. So how important is your mobile presence? Is your organization going to commit dollars and going to commit humans to this? Is it important? What is your current mobile user stats? How have they been changing? So maybe they're not great today. Maybe you take a look at 1 year, 6 months, 1 month, see if there is a change. And maybe there's not, but this is part of your company direction. You've labeled this as important. So maybe it doesn't matter that your stats aren't there because, oh my God, who would use your site on a mobile device anyway? It doesn't work. What is mobile experiences right for you? Start having a conversation about what mobile means, right? Are you talking about a completely separate mobile website in which you have 2 separate installs and you're maintaining content and the theme and entering stuff and changing stuff over here? Are you talking about creating a mobile app and an experience like that? Are you talking about a responsive theme where you're taking your main layout and start changing it depending on the width of your device, but it's still one single install? Or are you thinking, I just need a really nice website and then put that on a device and it will still look nice? That's probably not where people are heading these days, but it's still an option. If you don't have the money right up front, something to at least consider. And then if you are going to create an enhanced mobile experience, start talking about what features or content should be prioritized, because that might change the direction of if you specifically choose a responsive, how things are going to lay out, that might choose how the changes on desktop as well. Social media. So what are you trying to achieve with social media? Are you trying to increase your sales? Are you trying to gain an audience? Are you just simply an expert and have a really cool stuff to share and you want it out there? Are you doing this because everybody's on the internet, for heaven's sake? So that's a good reason a little bit, but you should have another reason besides that. Who are you trying to reach? This is a good time to figure out your demographics. Are you trying to reach male, female, old, young? There are tons of stats out there on the internet of what channel, whether it's Facebook or Twitter or Google Plus or Pinterest, of like who's on what, where are they, and figure out who should be reaching. And as I was saying, that's when you then figure out, based on what your needs are and your audience, what channels should you actually be on. Again, what resources do you have to commit? This keeps coming up, but it's really important. You can't do everything. You can't do everything well. So what do you want to commit to? How important is this? Is this something where it's going to be part of someone's job, or is this going to be something they do like once a week, once a month? That will change your strategy. And once you know all those things, you can start working up your content plan, figuring out who is the lead, who is going to be writing and editing and posting. Is there a review process that needs to go in between that? What content is posted on what channel? Maybe you have multiple channels, but all your content shouldn't be maybe on every single channel, because Twitter is a lot different than Facebook and Pinterest. Figure out what content is right for which channel. How often are you going to post? Are you going to post every week, every day? What time of day? And are you going to moderate it? Are you just going to put it out there and it's going to hang out, or are you going to respond to people commenting and kind of build a social dialogue? More importantly, you're here to build a website, right? How are we going to integrate with the website? Doesn't need to be a lot. Could be a whole bunch of stuff. You might want to pull your feeds in. You might want to use Facebook as commenting. You might want to just have share icons, because the conversation, the content over there is different, but bring people back and forth. And then finally, become a mini social media expert. I am not a social media expert, but there are so many resources out there that you can learn just a little bit that's going to help a lot. And I actually was at Confab last week. That was in Minneapolis, and there was a really great talk by Cece Holland called Rules of Engagement, and you can just Google that and you'll see her slides up there, and they're really, really awesome. And I have a resource slide at the end if you guys want the URL to that and all. But there's no reason, if you can find time to kind of start looking up this stuff, it's out there and it's great. And then Confab, it's held every year in Minneapolis, and they have an international one, and then there's, I think, another one for education somewhere in the country, but it's not here. And then content strategy. So that's a very popular word. It's what Confab is all about. And it's really, the plan that you're going to have to create, maintain, govern, and get this content up on your website and change it. So what can you be doing about that? Well, again, you should gather your content team. And we were talking before about who are the internal audiences that will be using the website in our priority audiences. A lot of those people are entering the content. Maybe they should be on this content team. Maybe they're not because your website's heading in a completely different direction. But gather those people and then appoint your lead that can organize everything. Again, what are the resources you can dedicate to the plan? So there's two kind of separate phases I see that when you're building or redesigning a new website, you're going to have this big, huge content push for that moment for the new site getting things in. And then you're going to have your long-term maintenance plan. So those groups might be slightly different. Become an expert on your own content. So I find it really, really helpful when we meet with people that actually have a real handle on their website and, wrap their arms around it and can tell me what is on their site. Things that are great to know are where is it and what is it? Where does it live and what is it? Is it a blog? Is it a page? Is it about someone's bio? When was it last updated? And who owns that piece of content? Now, the amount you're going to actually know about that is going to vary greatly on how big your site is, right? So we are working with someone that has like 1,000 or 2,000 pieces of content. You can wrap your arms around that decently well if that's part of your job. But we're also working with someone that has 30,000 pieces of content. So that's kind of a joke. They don't really know what's on their site. But they do know something, right? So if they have a blog, they probably know who all the blog authors are. Are they current? How often are they blogging? What are the blogs about? That's at least knowing your content, coming to the table with that information. Also, figure out the value of it. Just because it's there doesn't mean it should go to your new website or exist long term. Is that piece of content fitting those business needs? Is that piece of content fitting the audience that we've been talking about? Is it serving them? Is it important? Is it being maintained? If it's not historical, like a blog, news item, if it's not being updated, are you serving people? Also, are people actually looking at it? Google Analytics or whatever analytics program you're using is really helpful in this. And if you can find a way to put in a spreadsheet with your content on it and mapping your URLs to your Google Analytics, really helpful because you might be really surprised what people are looking at. We are recently working with a client that we're ready to throw out this whole section when they move their website over, and turns out everybody's looking at that section. They haven't updated it for like a year or two, but everybody wants that information. So you might be surprised and change your choices on that. Like I was saying, discuss your long-term maintenance plan. Who is going to be in charge of it? How often are you going to maintain it? What should be maintained? Do you look at it every year, every month? Do you have different content owners and that's their job? You want to get a calendar together to make sure that people are checking in on this. Otherwise, it's just going to kind of slide away. What team is responsible for what, right? So this is maybe the client's role. This is maybe the dev shop's role. Whose role is it? It will depend a little bit on time, money, expertise. You might be working with someone that is an expert content strategist and they have these things. Your organization might have someone that is really an expert in this. But when you come together and figure out who the right partner is for you, whatever side you're on, kind of figure out who should be doing what. But make sure you have that conversation. And finally, learn more. As I mentioned, I was at Confab, great conference if you're local here, so no travel expenses. It's a little spendy, but really interesting if that's part of what your job is to do. But they also, one of the speakers there who has been working with REI, Jonathan Coleman, I sat through his talk, and he also has a really great blog posted online called The Epic List of Content Strategy Resources. That's the epic list of content strategy resources. So you can Google that, and I have that at the end of the slide too, but that list, books and conferences and blogs and articles, like everything. So you can go through that list and kind of figure out, get your feet wet and see the things that you might want to look through. So you're probably ready, right? So, you got your needs, you got your teams, you talked about these items, go make really good websites. So here are the resources, if anybody wants them, and then that's that. So questions? Thank you. That's not fair, that's my Yeah, this is actually being recorded, so it will be, not sure, do you know where it's being posted, Drew? Yep. I heard a rumor that it might be posted on Vimeo or YouTube, so I kind of said, hey, let's just put an announcement on the website when they do that. So I know someone that knows somebody, so I'll make sure that happens. Yeah?
Do you have any resources as far as questions to ask somebody who's going to develop your website to get to some of these issues? Like, how do we find out what their process is? How do we know what they're telling us is going to be what actually happens?
Yeah, I don't actually, so the question is, do you have, and I'm repeating it for the recording purposes, do you have a list of questions that you can actually ask the dev shop that you're talking to find out this information? I don't have something like created besides my head and different things, and I would be happy to, connect with you and share that and put that together to help. Yeah, so the question is, when you're working on a big project, how involved are you in the content strategy and looking through stuff? Is it really the client responsibility, or what do you do? So it's a little bit case by case, and it's a little bit financial and what we have time for. So I would say, at the very least, we need to understand what's on the website. So if there's 30,000 pieces of items, we certainly haven't looked at every single piece. But we do want to get our arms around it ourselves as well and go through it and figure out what's there. And Erica might want to add something to that because she's our IA expert, and when she does her sitemap and that work to figure that out. But I think it's important for both sides to really understand it, because when a client's meeting with us, they're like, oh, I want this, I want this, I want this. They start to forget about what's even on their site, and we're just talking in this like separate bubble. And I think it really helps them to make good decisions and bring up things, oh, we can't forget about this. This is important, and we have this and that, to be able to have that conversation. Now, who ends up deciding what goes over and whether there's a data migration and taking that? We've kind of some separate meetings for that, because oftentimes when it's a really big site, there is some sort of data migration involved. And we have conversations with that, but we want to, it's a little bit of like figuring out what's on their site first and then figuring out what the next step is. Because some sites are a lot more straightforward of what to do than others. Does that answer? Yeah, a little bit, yeah. It's just hard. It takes a lot of time and it's hard. Cool. All right, well, I think I just gave you a half hour of your life back. Sorry, or yay. All right, well, thank you.